Thank you. I think they deserve a round of applause because they literally had to replace a projector. So thank you so much for doing this. I think the worst thing that could have possibly happened in any presentation has actually happened. So I expect my demos to be flawless and for all of you to watch this and say, oh my gosh, she's amazing. All right, so for those of you who stuck here, I want to say a big thank you for sticking with me. I think when you walked into the room, saw this huge thing, like, this must be canceled. So enough of me blabbering, and let me introduce myself. My name is Maria Naggaga, and this is my first time back in London in 15 years. I used to live here when I was little, so it's really exciting going back to my old neighborhoods, and it's really exciting to be back in London, and most especially to be at NDC. So if you have any questions about any of the information that I will be presenting today, or you missed a link, just feel free to tweet me at Lady Naggaga. So think of Lady Gaga and then Naggaga. It's kind of easy to remember, and it's a really great way for people to know how to pronounce my name. So I really enjoy her music, you know. Okay, so who am I? So I am a program manager on the Visual Studio and .NET community team. And we are a team of 4 people. My boss is next door, like, doing a demo, so everyone is there, so thank you for coming over here. And every single member of my team is responsible for different things. And the community team works with the developers that we've been working with for a number of years, as well as net new developers, and getting them excited about the .NET platform. And I, in particular, I focus on getting net new developers excited about .NET and CSharp and F#. So that's a pretty big audience. I'm also, I think, the only hack artist who actually exists in the entire world, because I coined the term. And I'll explain what I do. I like to put afros on iconic characters. So this is Wonder Woman with an afro. This is Amelia Earhart with an afro. Frida Kahlo. And Princess Peach. This is my most recent. And after the talk, I actually have some stickers. So if you want to come and ask me a question, I do have the Wonder Woman stickers. And I think I have enough for every single person in the room. It's like Oprah. Well, everyone gets a sticker. All right, so thank you for coming to my talk, which it starts with a search. And this is really my process on how we got .NET and C# running in the browser, and the work that I did to actually push that forward and convincing my managers and my skip levels on why this kind of experience is important. So this all started about a year or more ago. I'm kind of hazy on how long I've been at Microsoft, / I don't want to tell people, so they'll figure out my age. And I remember I had been an evangelist at Microsoft for 4 years, and I had just joined the .NET team, and I had dinner with my skip level, who's my boss's boss. And I said, what do you see me working on? And he was like, net new developers. And he said it with such excitement. And he was like, .NET Core is open source, it's cross-platform, so we should be able to get a whole bunch of brand new devs onto the platform, and this will be exciting, and it's going to be super easy, Maria. Don't worry about it. And the evangelist in me, who was so energetic and excited, said, absolutely, that's not a problem whatsoever. I'll go around the world, do a couple of workshops, go to all these places where people don't speak or do .NET, and I will rock it. And then after he went away and I came back to Earth and I realized what this huge thing was, I went from absolutely to like, okay, basically, I was petrified. I like to say, I was literally petrified. Because when I looked at all my peers and my friends and my mentors and my mentees, I was the only C# .NET developer. And I had only got excited about .NET because it had become cross-platform and open source. So I knew .NET from 2014 going forward. So there was this hesitation, do I have enough historical context? How can I start having conversations? And I realized that doing workshops and doing talks and doing videos simply wasn't going to cut it. So I started to walk around and do a lot of conversations and do a lot of research. And I reached out to a whole bunch of different developers from different walks of life. So if anyone has followed me on Twitter, they probably know I do a lot of stuff with boot camps, and I've worked with them to build .NET courses from scratch. I've worked with non-.NET devs at startups and different companies to see and gauge their perspective of what the situation was and what was holding them back. And there were a couple of things. What's holding you back from exploring .NET Core and C# and F#? And there were a couple of things. For a lot of people, they're like, where are the jobs? And I showed them the data. I'm like, look how many .NET jobs there are in comparison to other languages. They're like, okay. How many customers do you have who are using .NET Core? I see a lot of things about it being cross-platform and open source and really, really fast where I can get all this information. And there was one consistent thing that came from startups and hobbyists and new devs and teachers, and it was always, I don't know where to start. And this was a huge anchoring point on how people think about and learn how to code today. So let's talk about that right now. When you are teaching, how many of you have taught a .NET course or C# course or anything like that? Yes, John, I have your book. I wish I'd brought it. Please sign the copy later. And how many have got this question of where do I start learning how to code? Only one person? Okay. Okay, Bill. Okay. Like there are a couple of people where this is a consistent one. And how are people learning how to program today? How many of you learned in school? Okay, show off. How many of you learned by yourselves? Okay, that's a fair number. How many of you learned through community and online? I still do community and online, right? So the way we learn new features, right, and the way we explore new features is very, very, very different today. And it's expanding. It is expanding beyond very text-heavy documentation, where you go onto a site and they actually should tell you what every single line of code does, line by line, before you actually write your first line of code. It goes beyond copying and pasting. And we have these really great documentations where we're going to teach you how to build an ASP.NET application over these series of blogs, and before you know it, you have a fully functioning form that people can go and submit data to. But a lot of people who do the copy and paste and are teaching themselves how to code on their own, especially for brand new developers, if they hit a bug, if they hit an error, they're not going to figure it out. They're going to try and start it right from the beginning. So something that you've estimated to take someone 2 hours takes them 4, 6, 8, 1 week. And that's a huge commitment. You have to install the tools. You have to know how to do everything. And sometimes I've written blog posts where I forget to add the using statements or the APIs that they require, and then people get completely and utterly lost. And videos only also doesn't work at all, right? Okay, let me take that back. Videos only work, but it ends up taking a much longer time than you think. And this was a really hard one for me to think about, because if you do watch any of the MVAs or getting started with ASP.NET Core, you tend to see my face around, right? And we actually did the modules in a way that it's supposed to take you 15 minutes. But every single time I gave this content to instructors and brand new devs or startups, they said, okay, I'd have to pause the video, but since it's 15 minutes now, it takes me about 45, an hour, 2 hours to get through the content and get the application running the way I would like. So we're actually expecting people to spend this huge amount of time on actually learning new languages. When you're learning and exploring today, it's more about the ease of acquisition. How quickly can I get up and running as fast as possible? How easily can I write my first line of code without having to change my entire device? Like, I do not want to change my dev environment. I don't want to install something unless I'm completely committed to the language. And we have to begin to think about the acquisition of languages, the acquisition of tools. That's why we're shortening the Visual Studio time in time that you can actually install it. That's why we created Visual Studio Code. That's why we brought VS to Mac, to actually create an acquisition process that was better for all. And I want to give a really good example as when I was a technical evangelist in New York. I went to Columbia University, and there was this huge auditorium with about 200 kids. And this was during Windows 8, Windows Phone times. I think you guys can kind of see where I'm going with this. And they come in, they're super excited because I'm giving away 3 Xboxes and all of them want one. And I remember walking in and I was like, let's get started. And then I just had ding, sing, and it was a choir of Macs just rolling through the entire auditorium. And this is a beautiful auditorium, so it actually echoes, and it sounds like a melody, and it's going line by line. And I was like, okay, we're going to learn how to build a Windows 8 or Windows Phone application. Even better, you're going to do 2. I sounded like a salesman on TV, and it was just like, it was weird. And I said, how many of you have Windows? And it just went quiet. I was like, okay, go get Parallels, go get boot camps. I have copies of Windows. And I was like, yay, we're going to get it done. 2 hours later, how many of you have got Windows installed? And then you notice that the 200 has gone down to 80 people. And I was like, okay, how many of you have Visual Studio? No one. So let's go download Visual Studio on this really bad internet right at the university. 3 hours later, how many of you have Visual Studio up and running? The room is 20 people now. And I was like, okay, let's go in, look into the templates, and pick the ones you need. How many of you actually installed the right workload? A lot of people are actually installing C over CSharp. So they're like, I can't see the workloads. And then the obvious 3 people who stick it out to the end get the Xbox. So we ended up losing people. And it also left a very negative perception of what Microsoft is, because what we're looking for is the easiest path to happiness. So when I actually looked at all the different things, and I gathered all this data, and I looked at all the research, it was time for me to go and convince my bosses, my CVP, to actually invest engineering time and money and pay a huge cloud bill so we could start experimenting on these things. So along with everything else, I had to show some data. So I'd show them some of the facts. So I'm showing you the facts that I showed them earlier last year. This has changed. So I'm going to pick the one from Stack Overflow. There are a whole bunch of data that I used. So 90% of people are partially self-taught. So people love to learn. There's a general interest in learning how to code. 55.9%, 56% of them are willing to invest their money in an online coding school. So being able to learn and write code right in the browser. And the next group of people are learning on the job, which is very typical for a lot of us, where you're given a project or you join a new team and your skills are changed or ramped up. So, okay, so you've shown me the data, and there are a lot of faces like that in the room. What does this mean? And as you can guess, people have been running in droves to the internet to go and learn how to code. And this isn't a new thing. Everyone goes to the internet to get information every single day. But how many of you, for any language, have always typed something like this in a browser of your choice, Google or Bing or, pick your best? You've done a tutorial on C-sharp. You have done something on expression trees, even something very specific, copied and pasted your error right there, hoping that someone on Stack Overflow has answered it for you. And the issue today is that there's so many options. And it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. You have the video training, you have the online experiences, you have the free code camps where they give you certifications. You have CodePen, which really isn't designed to be a teaching tool, but I personally have used it several times to teach people workshops, especially when it comes to HTML and JavaScript. And it's all about first impressions. So I'm going to walk you through the feelings that people get when they walk through their documentation. So let's start in a good place. The yay moment, the excitement. JavaScript.com, which is owned by Pluralsight, which used to be owned by CodePen, it's a whole story, has this really good thing where they actually walk you through how to build your very first JavaScript application. From the moment you land on the screen, you're writing your name, you've done your first string, and you're just like, what is this? You're given instant gratification, you have that moment of success, and within about 15, 20 minutes, people are writing their very first functions and are ready to actually transition into an editor. With the first impressions, it's about easy to find. Like you type in something and you find the first thing it's Hank Riley, you find exactly what you're looking for. It's easy to navigate. JavaScript.com is a great example because you don't click on any single thing. You're actually going through the workflow and ending up where you need to be at the end. It's easy to understand. Like anyone could do this. I have shown it from my 7-year-old niece to my uncle this weekend who's 55, and there was just broad understanding of how they easily adapted to this. And it's the immediate success. The moment someone hits your documentation, they feel like they can move to the next step. The next moment is got it. That moment where you understand how all those different pieces come together. And I'm going to use the example of CodePen. A lot of people always told me when you're teaching people how to do HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, one of the biggest hurdles they face is seeing the immediate results and also seeing how all these different elements come together. How does my JavaScript impact my HTML? How does CSS make my page look pretty? And this is an example that was created by Lloyd James that I've used several times at code schools and Hour of Codes, and it gets general excitement because they can see immediate results and get that instant gratification. It's a click moment. For people in teams, when I have a situation and I don't understand how something's working, I can send someone a pen, and they can send it back to me and say, okay, this is a generic mistake, and this is how you can fix it. So it's being used for different things and to solve different situations. This gives people success in the browser. It encourages experimentation. It encourages the easiness of learning. And it's also really, really good for sharing. Now, the last one is, I'm generally worried by what I see, but the documentation that gives you worry. And there are many examples of this. And I like to call them the Golden Oldies. I've done this presentation in front of people born in 2000, and they're like, what is that in the corner? And I was like, that's a cassette. We used to wait for music and press record. Now you guys go to YouTube. We had to wait for our favorite songs to come on. And there's so many people who do this, but I always say start at home. And we've done great improvements to this. But if in the past, when you looked up a CSharp tutorial, the first thing that you would hit is this, and it's from 2003, and the first thing you see at the top is this document is archived and is not being maintained. So whenever I would go to code schools and go to boot camps, and they'd say, okay, I'll go and start building my courseware, and they would see the old documentation, they would just walk away from the entire situation. How many of you have gone to documentation, it's been way too much, way overwhelming, maybe old, and you're just like, I'm done, right? I'm done. And I remember working with this boot camp in Colorado, an amazing boot camp where they actually give free lessons to every student who doesn't have financial aid at all. And I love this school. I was so excited about them signing up because Colorado has a huge amount of .NET devs. And it's like, I can't teach this course because when I see old languages and I see that Microsoft isn't updating their documentation, it shows me that you're not investing in the language. And he's like, I can't invest in this. And he just walked away from building the .NET course. And I was like, okay. So the problem with old documentation and the worry feeling is there are a couple of things. The documentation will be old. It will be text heavy, where it's just too much text before anyone actually writes a line of code. There's assumed knowledge, where people are constantly referencing older versions of the language or referencing APIs that you have no idea about. And it's expensive. It takes a lot of time for people to actually narrow that down and find the documentation that they need to get started. So it's all about creating new experiences right now. And after I showed this to my team and I told my bosses that we need to make a change, they're like, here's an engineering team, go make it happen. So what I want to tell you is what we've been doing to create new experiences and the different steps that we've been doing and the experiments that we've been running to actually go forward. So first of all, the first thing that we wanted to look at was exposure. How are people being exposed to the language? So everyone is doing it. JavaScript, Haskell, Kotlin, Go, all have these really great experiences. The moment that you land on the page, you are interacting with the language immediately. Red Hat made a commitment and built CodePen, which is an online editor, to encourage developers to start experimenting with Red Hat more in the browser. Step 2 is creating the learning experiences. How do we get people successful and learning the things that they need to do in the browser? A good example of this is Code School. How many of you have used or heard of Code School? Right? Code School, you watch the videos, you interact, you actually have a light debugger right in the experience, you're notified when you're making mistakes, so it's that beautiful mix between the video and the online editor with instructions. And Treehouse has the same thing. And when you actually talk to these people, because I had conversations with it, they actually have a higher retention rate than their other competing companies that are doing the same thing because of the mix of both the things. And the third one is experimentation. Being able to create experiences in the browser where people can start experimenting and sharing of code. And that's how we came up with Try.net. So I didn't name Try.net. I went on vacation to Uganda. I came back and it was Try.net, and people are picking it up, which is great. And Try.net is a great way to learn, explore, and share .net without ever having to leave the browser. And that's what we set out to build. And what we are building right now is we want to Try.net with Microsoft. And Bill Wagner's in the room, and he has been a great, in the back, Bill Wagner, and he has been really great in creating those experiences for us, where he's been leveraging what we've been doing with Try.net and with containers and being able to compile CSharp in the browser, making sure that it is as fast as people expect it to be locally, dealing with our unhandled exception errors and our containers being overwhelmed and timing out errors. So, Bill, thank you for all your hard work. So that is really console applications. The next step is learn.net with C#. Imagine being able to do model views and controllers and being able to actually run it right in the browser and see the updates as it comes. Thirdly, learn.net with your training providers. So it's one thing if Microsoft creates great documentation, but I want to make sure that every single .NET documentation online has an interactive experience. Other things that we want to do is engage in .NET content everywhere. So in the near future, anyone who has a .NET blog with .NET code samples, you will actually be able to embed Try.net in your blog, and people will be able to run the samples. They won't be able to edit it, they'll be able to run the samples, which is great. And finally, being able to share and collaborate with .NET, being able to tweet it out, and people are able to run your tweets as a snippet. That is where we are going.
Does this include class library developers being able to include that Try.net in their documentation, or know the time to pick a completely random example?
Oh wow, you just killed my demo. Oh. But yes, we are.
Waiting for this for years.
I do have a demo like that at the end, and we built it Tuesday night. So yay, right? But yes, we will be having that as well. So before I go in and show you what we're doing, I have to say a huge thank you to all the people who have been building .NET experiences on their own in their free time. And if you know anyone, please feel free to go to our GitHub page and just plop their name in there because they've just been doing a stellar job. And we need to have more .NET experiences everywhere. All right, so let's do some demos. I'm usually a lot smoother than this, so don't judge me right now. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Can you all see that okay? Should I zoom in a little bit more? Is that good? Yes? No? Yeah? Okay, so the wonderful author of this document is in the room, Bill Wagner. And this is a QuickStart tutorial. So it's really focused on getting people who have no experience with .NET or C# whatsoever and having them go through the series of steps right here in the browser. So this is something in the past that would be written similarly, but we'd expect you to have an editor online. We'd expect you probably in the old days to be on Windows or have Windows running in an instance. And it's supposed to take a series of 28 minutes for new people. It usually takes me about 2 minutes because I'm usually like copying and pasting and demoing this. But I want to show you what we've done. So this is running your first C# program. You can copy the code over here and paste it, run, and it's hello world right there in the editor. We also have IntelliSense as well, because this is all using Monaco. And these are features that if you use it, you can turn it off and on. So let's test this out and see what happens if I do something like this. Right? It actually hits an error. It doesn't automatically say, OK, we're just going to put some imaginary quotations and make it a string for you. The person will actually be able to have the similar experience that they would if they were running locally on their machine. We're not hiding anything.
Tiny thing. Why is there still a smiley face? I expected the smiley face to be, yes, it compiled correct.
Oh, this smiley face over here? Oh, that's really just feedback.
All right.
But that's good. It is just feedback. So the user can go through a series of steps. Information gets more heavy as you go through, and it's that rich experience. So this is something that exists today, and people can start leveraging it. Another one that we have that had people go completely crazy when it was added was in our API docs. So you read through these API docs, and you're just like, oh, OK. How does, let's see. You'll notice a run button on a couple of them. So I can just run this. And it gives me an output. Now, this is, it just gives me an output. So your API documentation is coming to life. And when Bill tweeted this, we went a bit crazy on the internet. Like people, my inbox was full, and I got like 100 followers. That's big for me, of people asking when they could start leveraging this experience. We also have TridentNet in its raw form. So if you go to, and this is a really, don't judge me on the URL, it's try.dot.net. I know, it's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible URL. This is what you would use in this embedded iframe that you could put into your documentation. You can use this as your playground. When we first launched this page, the most common URL that got requested was try.net/F#, and that just showed us, OK, we need to do an F# experience immediately. So that is coming. It is in our roadmap. I run the code already, but you can run the code, put the output in. There you go. The next page I want to show you is try.net/rdocs. Now, this is pretty ugly now, but I am actually working on building a better page that will actually have step-by-step on how you can start embedding this in your documentation. But everything in blue over here are features that we have added to try.net. So you can start setting your own custom themes on what you want to do. You can set your code. You can actually start adding in things within Monaco. There are a lot of challenges that we've faced and we've noticed. One of them is try.net in the browser is not, on a mobile browser is not great. So we have to actually work on this because most people who are looking at this are looking at this on their phone. And that is our biggest complaint so far. And as someone who comes from, I grew up in England, but I'm from Uganda. I come from a developing world where everyone uses the internet on their phone. They do not have internet at home. This actually showed me that this is something we need to do immediately. And we've got complaints not only from our customers and people who are trying it in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, of I can't see this on my phone. We've got this from people in Australia. We've got this from people in Singapore, from Hong Kong, who are just I need to have this experience. Another known issue with try.net is that it's currently not running in Safari, but we noticed, But we're working on figuring, we have a couple of security issues there that we're working on as well. So let me go into our next demo. And we are going to do something with Twilio. So I am going to be using the Twilio API And this is running locally. I have my agent and my orchestrated running locally on my machine. And I am going to use a Twilio API to send a text. And I actually need a volunteer, otherwise it will just look that I've done this earlier. So first thing I'm going to do is grab my code, because I'm not going to code in front of you. That's terrifying. I'm not there yet. I'm going to grab that. There we go. Please don't steal my API key. And I have to add someone's phone number manually. So do we have a couple of volunteers who are willing? Okay. Let me grab your number. Hopefully, okay. There we go. Okay. 797. 797. Mm-hmm.
015.
Okay.
8865.
Okay. So it's going to send you a code, and if you could read that back to me.
Okay, 3411.
All right. So let's give this a try. Any other takers? Let's make this fun. All right.
260.
All right, so let me just go back over here.
It's a US number, so.
Oh, it's a US number? Okay. All right.
260 515. 260.
Oh, 260.
515. 1466.
Oh, was it wrong?
You said 2466.
Ah, okay. Let's go back. Let's do that again. 260.
515.
Okay.
1466.
I'm not messing up your international rates, am I?
The verification code was 1953.
All right. Let's grab that. Okay. Fingers crossed. And toes. Okay. Any other takers? I want to test if this works for Bill. Are you joining in on the fun?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Let's add it.
794 804 9779.
9779? Okay. Please change your numbers once this video goes live. Just joking. Oh, it's calling you, sorry. Let's do that. Let's try that. Is this your number? Okay, let's run this. And fingers crossed, you should get a text. All right. I got a text, but you didn't get a text. Not yet. All right. Let's see. Let's try it this way. A one where?
Between the 0 and the 5.
Between the 0.
In the line above.
Okay.
Directly above where you are.
Oh, right here.
So in the middle of the number, there's 7 zeros
Oh, 701570. There we go. That?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Maybe it does need the plus.
Plus all 00.
Okay. Let's try 00. No luck? Okay, hold on. No, I think I grabbed the wrong number. Is this yours?
Yeah. Maybe the plus will work.
Maybe it will work. Let's give it a try. All right. How many people got texts? Yay! Okay, I think clap. Please clap. Sorry. If you're American, you kind of got the please clap reference, maybe? You got it? You got it? Yeah, right? Because, like, okay, it's mean for me to set in. During the election last year, which is really bad to talk about, Jeb Bush was at a talk, and he said something, and no one clapped, and he said, please clap. So I filled you in. So that is the tiny little demo, and what this is showing is, this is our team's way of getting to a stateful experience and saving sessions. We're also pulling in external APIs, so you can see we're using Twilio, we are using Newtonsoft, we're actually using external APIs and NuGet packages, and this is just the start in something really, really small. It's something really, really big, so we're really excited about that. Let's see. So we did that demo. Yeah, sorry, that was supposed to be the thing, so yeah. That was supposed to be the point where I was supposed to say, I hope this is brilliant. Okay. So things that we are working on right now with TridentNet and getting it to the next place, because now we've realized that we've gone beyond just an experiment, and that's always a scary time within a big company, and someone's like, you have to start producing revenue, or you have to start moving forward. So things that we've been working on TridentNet is, one, we're finally sitting down with our engineering team, and we're figuring out our TridentNet roadmap. I was going to talk more about the architecture today, but we changed it last minute last week. We decided to go in a different direction. We're working on session-based work, so being able to actually come back to a session and start all over again, or being able to push it to a GitHub repo, and we'd actually provision that for you if you actually supply us with your GitHub information and go back and forth. We're working on multiple file support, so being able to do MVC or Razor pages right within the browser. Streamlining for acquisition. Right now, our acquisition process is a little bit messy. You have to use iframes. You have to whitelist your URL. We're actually streamlining it so you can actually easily grab it and go, and also provisioning the containers for you as well on Azure. So we're creating some work with our elastic pooling. And we're also improving our documentation, because from my entire experience, I realized documentation is literally everything. So for more information on TryNet, you can go to our really lengthy, I should have got an aka.ms link when I think about this. You can go to our page, which is try.net. Actually, that was really bad to say. try.dot.net/docs for more information. If you see anything missing or some features that you would like to see, please feel free to tweet me at any point, and we will work on that. If you have any suggestions, if you see any issues, our issues have really helped us push the product further. Go to our GitHub page, which is github.com/.net/try, and continue to see the docs. Give the docs team,
On your last link?
Yeah.
Especially for people here, delete the en-us.
Yeah.
And you'll get your localized version. It'll pick up your culture from the browser.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys get the slides afterwards. Do they get the slides afterwards? They do? Okay, so you guys will have, So you have access to all the links. I'll make sure to embed them and correct the URL so it's local to England. And thank you so much. And let's open it up for questions before I give you stickers. Thank you. Yes, John.
Sorry, sir. I always come through. I have a concern with, it's great that we can get people started quickly.
Yep.
I have a concern of overconfidence that people sort of rush into, I can do an ASP.NET core application and IOC and security and things. What's a null reference exception? What's a reference? And are objects passed by value or reference? And people don't learn the details of basics.
Okay.
How can we, there's a balance there and I'm not sure how we find it.
That's a really good question. So one, we are really relying on the docs team to kind of help us build, with any of the companies that we're doing, to actually create those experiences and set those expectations. Another thing that we're working towards is also transitioning people from the browser to an actual IDE. So it does not stop here. We're going to also limit what you can do with TridentNet as well to show them that the limitation and what they need to learn next. Those are the tiny things that we're doing. We're not going to go and build a debugger because that way we're actually creating an editor online. I don't know if that really answers your question.
It's sort of, I guess it's bigger than just TryNet. It's the whole discussion of how we best get people onto a confidence building but also deep understanding building curve.
Yeah, now that is, okay, now I get it. That is a huge issue, not only learning in general, even with people in boot camps who have not had a traditional CS degree. There are a couple of programs that people have set up. So I want to set on what companies are doing, what people should be doing individually. So Microsoft, for example, has a program called LEAP, which is basically the transition between graduating from a boot camp, and are people familiar with a boot camp? Okay. And going into the job market. And LEAP is about teaching those skills of understanding algorithms and understanding security and actually building particular code bases. And they actually have to go and build Visual Studio for like 3 months before they actually start interviewing for a job on the team. Because what you tend to find is someone will know how to build an app, like they'll know how to build an Instagram, or they'll know how to build a version of an e-card, but they won't know how to do anything beyond that. So we have to set expectations on what their limitations are, and it's a responsibility of a lot of training providers to do that. As people who are teaching people, keep to the basics, right? Encourage people to ask questions when they can. I'm not a supporter of too much of historical references right in the beginning, like telling someone you have to know the history of .NET before you build the first .NET application. But having those conversations back and forth and setting those expectations is it's pretty hard. That's a difficult one. That's actually a really difficult question that we struggle with.
Can I add just one thing?
Yeah.
John, we are really thinking hard about this and building the content. Anytime you see any of the things show up on the QuickStarts or any of the tutorials, I'd love to hear any feedback you have. And especially working with people who are just learning it, we're really trying to figure out how best to introduce the right number of concepts at the right time so that people do learn those concepts and learn the algorithms, but don't just feel totally overwhelmed by the sea of text that they don't understand.
And C-Sharp's a big language now.
It's
Learning
huge.
it from scratch is hard.
It is hard. And like I've had the same conversation with people who do, like JavaScript's getting big, and the JavaScript frameworks that people need to get up and running. Like you learn Angular 1 and then it becomes irrelevant, and then Angular 2 is different from the other versions. So yeah, it's a huge, huge disparity. Any other questions? Were you sold? Oh, Jordan.
Did you know how much you scale for the back end yet?
Oh, beg your pardon?
Can you talk about how much you've been scaling the back end?
I could, but I have a feeling that my engineering team would kill me because they don't want to share the information yet. But we also made some changes to the way we scale the back end. So anything that I share today would not be accurate to what we're doing currently with a new pool. Yeah. But we have a blog post coming out in 2 weeks that is going to describe in as much detail as possible on how we are building and scaling the back end and how we're leveraging Azure and containers to do that. So we're using a lot of Docker and Kubernetes to do a lot of spinning up of the pools and the containers. Any other questions?
So leading on from that, is it going to be open source?
So we are going to open source some of it because we do want the F# community to go and build their version of it. So open sourcing the agent would be huge. VB. And once we have a strong foothold in those languages, everything that's .NET based, maybe we'll explore what it looks like for other languages as well that are supported in our editor and Visual Studio experiences. But yes, it's coming.
I can see wanting to use this for the Google Cloud .NET docs, and my guess is that we may find it easier if we can host the containers rather than relying on Azure for GCP docs. That might look a little odd.
Yes, we can definitely. We've had a couple of requests for that, so yes, that is something we can do. Any other questions? Any feedback?
It's so exciting.
Yay! This is exciting. Okay, thank you so much for coming, for being patient, for letting them work on the stuff in the back. And if you have any questions and you want to talk to me, I'll be here. I think we have the room for a few more minutes. Okay, and I also have stickers, if that helps. And they're really nice. Everyone can get one. Not bad, right? Okay, thank you so much for coming.